Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Dad Project. It has been a little while since you would have heard from me on a solo episode. So here I am back to do another solo episode for the week. It's been a while since I've published an episode. It's been about a month. I've just had to push the podcast to a little bit of a back seat. Had a little bit going on here at the moment. A lot of opportunities coming up, all good. Nothing really negative. It's just forced me to really sit back, reassess what I want out of life and what I want out of the direction for me professionally. And that means that this has just been put on hold for the month. But I'm probably going to start to pivot back into doing a few more solo episodes. The time commitment that is needed in order to do the interview style episodes that I've been doing, as much as I've really enjoyed doing it, I've been able to talk to some great people, and I still have a few other episodes that I will publish over the coming weeks. But it's a very, very heavy time commitment. And one of the things that I wanted to get on and talk about briefly on this episode today is that obviously things always change. I think that as human beings, the only constant that is really in life is change. And I think especially if you're somebody like myself who likes to push, likes to try and always be growing, likes to try and always be looking for how to grow whatever it is that you're doing. For me, it's looking to grow my business. It's also looking for me to grow personally. I've spoken about it on the podcast a few times over the last, 9 to 12 months. I've undertaken a journey where I'm back studying again. I'm doing a diploma of counseling to try and, I guess, legitimize the mental health work that I've been doing with people inadvertently over the last 15 years. There's a very large component to, when we're dealing with people from a personal trainer or a coach point of view, where there's a lot of inadvertent counseling that goes on. You build quite strong relationships with those people that you're coaching, especially when it's an in-person thing. And you're seeing those people 3, 4, 5 times a week. Like, you are having some very, very deep conversations with people. So as a result, I made that decision that I was going to go and get a formal qualification to hopefully aid me in becoming a better coach. So by pushing to be better as a human being, to grow my skill set, it just means that at different times I'm going to have to assess my time commitments in order to really work out what's going to be the best path forward so that I can effectively use my time to move the things forward that I want to move forward. And I guess the thing that I'll run over today is what my thought process was as I was going through that, and why it was the podcast that I chose to take the back seat. And there was two elements to that, right? Firstly, one concept that I go over a lot with my clients, and that I've also gone over a lot on the podcast, is priorities, and really working out what your priorities are. And for me, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to change. I think you're going to go through different seasons in life where different things are going to shift to the top. And you can call them values, you can call them whatever you want to, but it's basically having, I guess, a rule set for yourself to revert back to, so that when things do get a little bit tough, or you're trying to work out what should I be doing, what action should I be taking, you've got something to revert back to, so that you can go, right, like, this is going to be the biggest thing that I'm going to work towards. So how am I going to structure my time to achieve that? And one of the things that has always been super important for me, as it is for probably everybody that listens to this podcast, or most people that listen to the podcast, is going to be my family, and time with the family, time with the kids. Now, my kids are also, they're getting to an age now where they're both in school, so they're not home as much. They're probably going to start to go through a phase soon where friends are going to start to become very important to them, and friends are important to them now, but more so in the future. So we're going to have, not that our job is ever finished as parents, but we're going to have there's going to be less of a hands-on time commitment. It's going to be a little bit more about quality time than it's going to be about the total time. So there is a little bit of time that is easing up. So, but that's always going to be my number one priority for me personally. For you, maybe not, but for me, that is. So everything I do is going to relate back to that. And then within there, there's always going to be things that are interconnected. My health is obviously very high on my priority list. So my physical health, my mental health, that is something that for me, I've always prioritized. So I'm going to always continue to prioritize an appropriate amount of time each week and each day for that. So they're the first two things that I'm kind of putting time aside in my diary for. And then from there, where it has shifted over the last kind of 12 months is study. Study has become quite a high priority list because it is important to me to finish this course that I'm doing so that I can use that to continue to grow the business and grow my professional skill set. So that has been pushed up the list, whereas in the past maybe it's been a lower priority on the list, but that has gone up in the list, which has meant that then there are other things that I guess are in line with that. So making money is in line with that. So the coaching business, making sure that I'm bringing enough money into the family to make sure that they're provided for appropriately. And there can be a balance for that, right? And with today's day and age, without going down the rabbit hole, I know there are a lot of people struggling. We're very lucky in the fact that, we're quite comfortable with what we've got. I've got quite a lot of flexibility with what I do. So I understand my situation is a little bit unique and everybody is different. But I do believe with the people that I've been working with over the years, you can use a very similar structure to what I do. It's just the mechanics within that structure are going to be different. But obviously the providing, probably if we had to actually rank them 1 through 5 or 1 through 6 or however many priorities we're looking at, the work is probably going to take precedence over the study just because that ties into my number one goal, which is being there for my family and providing for my family being the overarching thing that is driving me. But they're kind of the top 4 priorities, and it means that the other things have to take a back seat. And the one thing with this podcast, and this isn't a woe is me story because it is my decision and it's my choice to do this podcast and continue to do it over the last 3 years. The way that this podcast has made money for me is it drives people into the coaching business. I don't run ads. We've got a very small following on YouTube, so there's no monetization on there, which, just to give it a plug, I have been placing a lot more emphasis in putting videos up on YouTube, so please jump over there and give us a subscribe. Try and build that up. If you find some value from it, make sure you share it with people. We've got a much larger following in the audio space, just because that's where the podcast started. But it's the podcast itself isn't monetized. The way it feeds into other areas of my life is that it does bring in people from a coaching point of view. But I am also at a point with my coaching where I'm starting to get to capacity. So I don't necessarily need as many people coming in because my time commitment that I'm able to give to each person that I coach, because what I do from a coaching point of view is everybody is truly treated as an individual, because one of my core premises and core beliefs as a coach is that the advice that you should be given should be context dependent and not a cookie cutter program, or not cookie cutter advice which is given to every single person. So there is a minimum time commitment that I need to put in each week. Doesn't matter whether it's somebody that's in person or somebody that's online that I'm working with remotely, either in a different country or throughout Australia. There still needs to be a minimum time commitment because I am crafting out a plan for each person individually. So the commitment that I have from a coaching point of view is starting to get tapped out, while understanding that I still want being the probably highlighted word in there, I don't have to, I get to. I want to be able to do these other things. I want to still make sure I've got plenty of time to spend with my family. I want to make sure that I have that time where I am able to continue doing this study. So, from a coaching point of view, I'm not really looking to bring too many other people in. Obviously, there are still some vacancies, and depending on the person, and if I feel like I can help them effectively, there are people that we are bringing in. But the need for me to drive a lot more people into the coaching business is not there at this point in time. So as a result, that was kind of the process and the hierarchy that I went through to go, righto, the time commitment that goes into making and editing and publishing social media clips for the podcast is probably better used for me right now in other areas of my life. And to talk about mentally, some of the things that I had to kind of address with that, there was feelings of worrying about what other people would think. Oh, I've taken a few, I won't say extended breaks, but I've taken a few couple of week breaks over the last 3 years on the podcast. And to be fair, taking those 3 and 4 week breaks kind of intermittently when I felt that I've needed it to prioritize the time for something else is probably one of the reasons why I'm still continuing to publish episodes of the podcast. I'll go through about, 3 to 6 month period where you'll get a new episode every week, and then it might be a couple of week break, and then I'll go through another 6 months and do it. But I've been doing that for the last 3 years, 3 and a bit years. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm able to continue to do it, because I'm almost not putting too much pressure on myself for this, because I understand in the ecosystem of my life where it fits into everything. And because it is an outward facing thing that I'm doing, there is always the worry of what are other people going to think. And as I get older, I care less about what other people think, um, other than those that are actually important in my life. But there was that fear. That was one of the things that came up. There was thought of, do I just give up on it completely? And I sat down and I kind of wrote out some pros and cons and really thought about it. And it's like, well, I was almost at the point where I was going to just jettison the podcast completely. But I also during that time got a few messages and a few really nice things said from friends, from people that listen to the podcast, and kind of said, asking, what's going on? Is there going to be some new episodes and things like that? And I realized that even though selfishly the thing for this podcast was to try and bring people into the business, one of the reasons that I started was just to put free information out there that has helped me personally and has also helped people that I've coached. And I want to continue to be able to do that. And it's just probably going to mean at different times, I need to accept that we may go through periods where there's not an episode published for a couple of weeks just because I've got other things going on. Right now, I don't have any help with this. Again, it's not a woe is me story. It is just more to let you know what the current state of play is within that life, and also the thought process that I'm going through, because I think we all go through these times where we've got to reassess what is going on with our time. We either want to add something in, whether it be I want to start working out more, or I want to do something new, or it is that something is forced upon us, and as a result, we are having to look at our life as a whole and go, right, like I've got to find time. I have to find time to do this from somewhere. I was lucky. It wasn't forced upon me. It was actually a conscious decision to do the things that I do and push the things to the back that I did. But there are going to be potentially some times, whether it be in the future that I haven't seen yet, or it be, way into the future, 5-10 years down the track, that I'm probably going to have something forced on me where I am going to have to make a very quick decision about where my time commitments lie, because something is going to rocket up the list of importance that I need to allocate time to, which means things are going to have to just drop off the edge. And that's just the reality of life. The only constant that we really have in life is change. And when it gets to that point, I think you have to be okay to say no to things. You have to also have potentially a skill set and a tool set to really analyze what is important from a time point of view. And sometimes it may not mean that you have to give up on things. It might just mean that they take a back seat for a few weeks or even a few months, or maybe it's even a year, or maybe it just means that we dial down the time commitment on a few things there. But your decision is always going to be based off your hierarchy of needs and your individual set of priorities. So, what is important to you? And again, harping on about this as an overarching concept, if you don't quite understand those, it's going to be hard for you to make the decision or make a decision that you're comfortable with. And I think that's probably more to the point. When you make a decision to maybe drop something back and commit to something else, I think you have to inherently be okay with that decision, because there are no absolutes in what we do. There are only ever trade-offs. And not doing something or adding something in, there's always going to be something on the other end of the scales that is going to tip, or that's going to be affected by it. So say, for example, if I'm using the thing that I've just gone through, not doing this podcast, knowing that it brings in a certain amount of people into my program, I have to be okay with not getting those people come into the program because I'm not publishing regularly for the podcast. And that's a trade-off that I'm happy to make, because everything in life we do is going to be connected. And for me, that feeding into that is okay, because I know that I need to allocate the time that I would generally allocate to onboarding those new clients or writing programs for those people. That needs to be put into something else, which is, for me, the study. And the reason that is important to me is because I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to show my kids that it doesn't matter what age you're at, you should be constantly striving to be better. You should be constantly striving to learn new things. Our kids, when they're young, I think they truly believe that we know everything and we have the solution to all life's problems. And while I want my kids to know that I am competent and I can help them no matter what, and they can come to me no matter what, it's also important for them to know that I don't know everything, and I'm going to always be constantly learning new things so that I can get better as a human being, and I can then effectively help them better. But I can also be, I guess that I'm kind of a little bit lost for words with my train of thought here, but maybe, and it's not that I shouldn't say so I can be happy with myself, but as long as I can constantly be improving, I think that's one of the things that's going to help me build confidence throughout life to take on new tasks and new challenges. But that constant, consistent drive to be better, to try and always improve oneself, is something that is a habit that, or a trait that I want to instill in my kids. So the study, adding that in and that shooting up my priority list, it's not just about me obtaining a new qualification. It's about a few other areas. And that's why I'm prioritizing time for it. I think if you're trying to implement something new, if there is only one area in life that it is impacting, i.e., I want to, let's say I'm going into the gym and I want to add in training, and the only reason I want to do that is so that I look better in the mirror, that may be a flimsy enough reason that you drop off. If the reason then, yes, I want to look better when I look at myself in the mirror. I want to feel better about myself, but I also want to be more athletic. I want to be able to do more stuff so that I can go out and play with the kids. I want to show my children that it's okay to prioritize time for yourself, so that when they get older, they're able to do the same things. I want to show my son that, like, what, you know, a man should be from a physical standpoint. It doesn't mean they have to be super jacked and everything like that, but they should be physically fit and capable. I want to be my kids to see that. That's a bigger reason. And those bigger reasons are the things that when you're trying to implement something new and you come up against a little bit of resistance and you've got to push through that, they're the things that are going to make you hold true to what you said you were going to do and follow through with it a little bit more. And I think that that's all important. And, the last 20 minutes, I've really gone through a lot. I've covered off, I guess, a lot of different topics. But to wrap it all up, the only thing that is going to be constant in life will be change. We are going to go through periods in life where we are able to settle into a routine and we are able to get our habits right. But at some point, whether it be chosen or forced upon you, you are going to have to change, and the time commitments that you put into things are going to have to be shuffled around. And for me, in order not to fall into a heap and kind of get too wrapped up about things. Now, that doesn't mean that I went through a day there where I was quite down and dejected. Like I was just not in a very good headspace, and I just took the day. I didn't really do anything. Like, you're going to still have times where it's not like it's just going to be, oh, I'm good, like I know exactly what to do. You may, but for me personally, there's mentally taxing times, but by having that hierarchy, by understanding my priorities, I'm able to refer back to that and go, right, this is how things are going to rank out for me now. That's maybe changed from what happened in 6 months ago, and that's okay. And this is how I'm going to start to structure my day and work towards doing something for the now. And that may change again in 2 weeks' time. That may change again in 3 months' time. That may change again in 6 months' time. But by having that, I guess, guiding star, that North Star, that compass to go back to, kind of get your bearings and go, right, all right, this is how we're going to structure things now. And then going through and following through with the plan that you've set out. And then maybe having to adjust it as you're working through it. That's really going to help when you go through times of change. And if you are struggling to find that for yourself, sometimes getting some external help is going to be the best thing you can do for yourself, for your family, and for those around you in order to get you back on track, because it is very hard to do that if you haven't had to do it for yourself before. And if you haven't already developed that skill set, I truly believe that is a skill set that you can develop. But sometimes in order to develop a skill set, we need to go to somebody who is able to help us develop that. So change is hard. Having to reprioritize things, it's a tough task for a lot of people, and it's a very hard thing to work through when you've got to work through it. But you can do it. Just don't let change ruin the important things in your life, and don't let that change get you so wrapped up that you fall into a heap and you give up, because you don't need to give up. It just means that things maybe need to shift for now. It's a season in your life that you're changing to a different person, and change, depending on your perspective on it, can be a good thing. There's no problems, there's only opportunities if you want to look at things that way. And look, some force change, some things that come up, I haven't been through that. A lot of what I've just been through has been chosen by myself, and I'm very lucky that that's the case. But I'm sure at some point there's going to be a force change that I'm going to have to deal with. And hopefully, my hope for me and my hope for those that are listening is that, I can use the tools that I've developed over the last 20 plus years to come up with a solution that I'm going to be happy with, that I'm going to be able to move forward with. So, look, as I mentioned throughout the podcast, I do have very few vacancies for coaching. So if you do want help with some of the things I've talked about today, please reach out. You can drop us a line on either Instagram or Facebook. Send us a message on there. If you're not looking for coaching and you enjoy the content, please make sure that you're subscribed on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. As I said, We are putting a lot of effort into YouTube when I'm doing episodes. So jump on there, give us a subscribe. But other than that, thanks again for joining me. I will see you on the next episode. Goodbye.